For Black women, we are exceptionally busy. We crowd our every moment of life with something that has to be done. It comes with an emotional cost. The narrative of being that strong Black woman becomes toxic, and we suffer in silence. Black women are 60% more likely to have high blood pressure. It's okay to do many things. It's not okay to try to do everything to perfection. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Say Something Black Girl with Dr. J. I'm your girl, Dr. J, and I'm indeed excited to be here, to be able to have this podcast, to really have an open forum for us to discuss the challenges, the joys, the successes of being an amazing woman of color. Now, before I get started with this episode, I wanted to say a few things. As you can see, I'm still trying to get my studio set up. Let me tell you, I have contacted a few producers and I've actually found one. Yes. So he will be here next week to help me get set up. And so hopefully in the next few episodes that come up, you will see me in my brand new home studio. So I'm super excited about that. Remember, if you can hang in there with your girl, I'm going to hang in there with you, and we're going to make sure that we grow together. Remember, I said in all of my episodes thus far that I am not perfect. I am subject to make some mistakes, but I am a reflection of real life, where in real life we make mistakes, and it's okay as long as we're learning from them. So I wanted to tell you on this episode on Say Something Black Girl with Dr. J, I want to talk about something that's really important to Black women. And the name of this episode is No Time to Cry. The challenges of being a Black woman. Now, I know that this is such a valuable topic, and I know that it will touch your heart. And I hope that once you hear this full episode, one, you'll realize that it's okay to cry, and that two, you will establish some very healthy boundaries and limitations in your life, so that you will feel supported and that you will be doing the things that you need to do in this upcoming year. And three, to have an abundance of joy and happiness. I'm super excited to have this episode air because I know it will be a blessing to you if you stay tuned. So let's get started, everybody. With that being said, I want to discuss what do I mean when I say no time to cry. For Black women, we are exceptionally busy. We crowd our every moment of life with something that has to be done. And when we do that, we are overwhelmed with so many things. And I've taken a few notes about that. We acknowledge that there are work demands, there are family demands, there are demands made by friends, there are demands made by loved ones, our relationships, and there are demands that are even made by our children. And what happens is when we acknowledge and have to experience all of these demands, it comes with an emotional cost. An emotional cost, and the narrative of being that strong Black woman becomes toxic. And I don't mean that you can't be a strong Black woman. Don't get it twisted, because we have to be. But sometimes wearing that cloak, wearing that cape can be very suffocating if we're not treated as if we're human. Now, there are some things that I want to really discuss. And sometimes when we as Black women really need to understand that when we're given certain messages, those messages may or may not be helpful. For example, in our culture, we like to just say, pray about it. Of course you need to pray, but there's also action. And we also say things like, don't let them see you sweat. Don't let them see you sweat. You have to be twice as good, 3 times as good as anybody in the room. Imagine the pressure that puts on any person, particularly a Black woman. What happens when we are forced to live this line of perfection? It can be very suffocating, and we suffer from what we call suffering in silence. We don't even know how to get out of it because we are so good at masking our symptoms that we ourselves don't know how to get out of it. Now, I know that this might seem a little touchy, right? Because we have to get our work done. We have to be there for our family. We have to be there for our friends. We have to be there for our partner. We have to be there for our children. We have to be there for our community. But at what cost to us? It's okay to do many things. It's not okay to try to do everything to perfection. That can cause a lot of symptoms that we never address. But you say, but Dr. J. But you say, Dr. J, what am I supposed to do? I have to get it all done. I have to be able to take care of my kids, take care of my house, take care of my household, be responsible for the finances. I have to go to work. I have to go to school. I have to make sure that I take care of my partner. And I have to do it to perfection. I have no other choice. Yes, you do. You have to be able to pick and choose those things wisely so that you don't overwhelm yourself. Let's talk a little bit more. What are some of the messages and things that we see when we're at work? As a Black woman, there's a lot of code switching at work. There's a lot of microaggressions that you may see in your job. The pressure to outperform, as I said earlier, being twice as good, 3 times as good, 5 times as good. It's not even a reality. And then being a Black woman, we also in the workplace may be given the leadership, but not the authority. Meaning you might be leading the team, but you can't make any decisions. How frustrating is that? So when you think about it, you don't have time to cry at work because you have all this responsibility. But when it really comes down to making decisions, they won't give you the authority to do so. So it makes it very challenging at work. Talk about family. In your extended family or even in your immediate family, Black women have been known to be the glue of the family. Caring for parents that might be aging, even having the financial support expectations. Oh, you got it. You can let us borrow it, or you can let us have it. Or no, you are the one that's supposed to be paying for everything for our parents. You went to school. You go to work every day. You make all that big money. And then we become the ones who everybody appears to depend on. Motherhood, and when I talk about children, is having our children and trying to provide a lifestyle for them. Trying to make sure they have a roof over their head, clothes on their back, food to eat, education, allowing them to participate in extracurricular activities, working those extra hours so that they can do that, working that extra job so that they can have those things. But the question is, Black woman, are you living above your means? Are you sacrificing your children for material things? Or are you really living in a lifestyle that's affordable to your income? Or are you feeling the pressure from other people to live above what you can really afford so that you don't feel left out? Or maybe you feel like at your age, whatever that is, that you should be further along because you're looking at some of your friends, and some of your friends are living in a big house and driving fancy cars and they're traveling all over the world. But if you just live in your own peace, live in your own comfort, live in your own means, then maybe you won't feel like you have to sacrifice your children. And what do I mean by that is, if we're working so hard, 12-hour, 15-hour shifts, and we're giving everything we got to our job, what do we have left to give to our children? Are we tired when we come home? Are we agitated? Are we irritable? Are we anxious? Are we depressed? Are we easily annoyed? What do we have left to really give to them? And how can we teach them if we're gone? And I hear you, Black woman. You say, but Dr. J, I have to go to work. I have to work. You're absolutely right. But are you working in a job that's going to allow you the flexibility to spend quality time with your children? Something has to give when you're working 24/7. Can you find a job that's flexible? Can you find the support you need so that you can support your children? Can you be at their basketball games or their cheerleading competitions or their volleyball tournaments? Are you available to do that? What's more important? Think about it. Friendships. Being a strong friend for your friend. But is that relationship reciprocal? Are you there for each other? Or is it just you? Do your friends look to you as the advice giver? You know, you have it all together. They look to you to help them solve their problems, but then you sit back and you realize that you can't solve your own. Or you make it seem like you have it all together until you're at home. And now you get home from working 12, 15 hours. You got this job, that job. You got this committee, that committee. You're trying to do this and that. And then by the time you get home, you're trying to wash clothes, clean your house, cook, trying to help the kid with their homework if you have time. Now you're really tired. You're trying to lay down. You're tired. You're sleepy. You're frustrated. You're agitated. Oh, wait, you can't do that because now you got to take out the dogs. You have to do this. You have to do that. And you have no time. You're trying to figure out how you get this bill paid. How do you get that bill paid? How you're going to meet your mortgage payment. You're living check to check to check. And nobody's there to really help you because now you're scared to ask for help because everybody sees you as the breadwinner, the one who's leading the family. And there's some different dynamics here. As a single parent, you feel the pinch and the stress of every paycheck. Even as a person who might be married and you're leading the family, you feel the strain of being the person leading the family and maybe even making all the decisions in the family when you have a partner. That becomes very overwhelming. romantic relationships. It's the emotional labor and the fear of being labeled aggressive, being labeled a know-it-all, being labeled the one who has it all together. And then your partner even seeing you as a person that doesn't need them. So they don't even try anymore because you got it, right? You got it. You got it, even when you know you don't have it. But you gonna try. So you like, oh, okay, you say I got it, then I got it. And then you act like you don't need them, when deep down inside, you know you do. And if they're not there for you, then you find other ways to justify their presence. Maybe they're there to help you raise your children when you don't even like them. Think about it. There's something called high functioning depression, where we as Black women have mastered it. We can leave our houses every day, go to work, on our jobs, be top for performers. Never are we questioned about our ability to perform. It's our decision making that's questioned even when it doesn't need to be. So we have it bad by saying, oh, I'm good. There's nothing wrong. I got this. I don't need any help. When in fact, we need help. We're afraid to ask for it. We're afraid to ask for the help. We don't want anybody to see us as weak. You know, I spoke at a conference this past weekend, and many of the women there talked about the idea of being seen as weak because they asked for help. Help in the household, help at the job, help in the relationship, just help in general. The worst thing that we see that anybody can say to us is that you're weak and you can't get it done. When in essence, nobody really could get it done, given the enormity of what's being asked. So I want to take this time to really promote wellness. And I'm going to talk about a few things that I think we as Black women really need to pay attention to in order for us to be better. No, just because you can't do it all doesn't mean you're weak. No, just because you've decided to take time out to focus on your children and what they mean and what they need doesn't mean that you're weak. To be able to focus on your household, maybe downsize, doesn't mean that you're not a success or that you're a failure. Being able to appreciate downsizing so that you can spend more quality time with your family or maybe your friends doesn't mean that you're not successful. Right after this commercial break, we're going to talk more about wellness of being a Black woman and allowing yourself that space to cry. Right after these messages.
What if you're not unmotivated? What if you're depressed? Depression isn't just sadness, it's emotional heaviness, exhaustion, loss of interest, and feeling disconnected from yourself or others. And pushing harder often makes it worse, not better. Healing depression isn't about quick fixes, it's about addressing brain chemistry, thought patterns, and emotional load, sometimes with the support of medication alongside therapy. Therapeutic Alliance and Testing Center provides psychological testing and therapy supported by careful medication management when treating depression. Advanced mental health therapy, counseling, psychological testing, and medication management services all under one roof.
Welcome back to Say Something Black Girl with Dr. J. You know, after this commercial break, we were talking about some of the adjustments and changes we can make as Black women that might make our lives a little easier in order to maintain our households and spend quality time with our children. But I want to talk a little bit more about how does this really affect us physiologically. You know, Black women are 60% more likely to have high blood pressure, nearly twice as likely to develop heart disease. Now listen, you know I always have a little story time with my podcast, and I'm going to be transparent and I'm going to be honest. If you know anything about Dr. J, you know I am a workaholic. I'm not saying that's good. I'm saying that's who I am. And I've had to learn how to even manage that a little better. So I'm going to, just be honest with you guys. This stat of 3 to 4 times more likely to have heart disease have hit me personally. And I'm going to tell you that about 7 years ago, I had a heart attack. I did. And I did all the things that you should not do. First of all, heart disease is a silent killer for Black women, Black people in general. But I was doing things like riding around my car, eating up a bottle of Tums because I thought I had, acid reflux or heartburn. I was riding around drinking Malox or whatever it's called. I was at night sitting in my bed, couldn't lay down flat. I had to always almost elevate up to a seated position, and I would always have a bottle of Tums or something next to my bed. My chest would be hurting so bad that it would wake me up, and I would sit up in the bed and I would just start crying of chest pain. And I'm not going to lie, I was kind of hiding it from my husband. I would try my best to go in the bathroom. I would be crying because you know what? I would say, I have to go to work tomorrow. I have things to do. I don't have time to be sick. God has a way of slowing you down and sitting you down. So I let this go on for, about 3 or 4 weeks. And then finally one day, and this is the honest to God's truth, I was sitting in a swim meet with my husband, my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, my aunt, my daughter. And if you know anything about a swim meet, and my son, my bonus son, was swimming one of his meets, and I was sitting in that swim meet, you all, and it was jam-packed. And if you know anything about a swim meet, there's not a lot of people of color. And it's hot in there. And by the way, I'm the team mom for the swim team at my son's high school at the time. And I was sitting in the swim meet and I could feel my chest pounding. It was like a truck was sitting on top of my chest. And there were tears coming out my eyes. And my husband looked at me and he said, Jackie, what's wrong with you? And I could barely talk. And I said, it's really hard for me to breathe in here. I think it's just really hot. And he said, are you sure? And I said, yeah. And I took my jacket off and I thought, okay, that'll give me some time. You see how silly this sounds? And I was having a conversation with God right then, sitting in that swim meet. And I said, God, please don't let me die in this swim meet. I said, God, if you let me get through my son's swim meet, I promise I'll go to the ER. I said, but God, don't let me die in front of all these people that don't look like me. This is the conversation I'm having with God in the swim meet. And God allowed me to walk out that swim meet. I don't know how. And we get to the car, and I tell my husband, I say, oh, I'm fine. I'll go to the doctor tomorrow. Now look at me. I done told God I would go to the doctor or go to the ER if he just let me get out this swim meet. He let me get out the swim meet and I go home. I said, Lord, Lord, Lord. I wake up that next morning and I got in my car, and instead of going to work, I drove myself to the ER. And let me tell you something. I get to the ER and I can't even breathe. I almost fell out in the lobby. And I tell the nurse, I said, look, my chest hurts so bad. I don't know if I'm going to make it. That nurse said, you going to make it. And she, so fast, I was in the back. Before I knew anything, I was being transported from that standalone ER, and I was being rushed in an ambulance to a hospital where they told me I was having a heart attack. It just so happened at the time, my now husband's uncle, who's now deceased, was a cardiac thoracic surgeon, a cardiologist with thoracic surgeon training. One of the only blacks, or very few African Americans, who had that type of training, and I believe the only one from Dubaki himself. The only thing I remember was them rolling me in to the OR, and I saw my Uncle Bill's face, and he had his white coat on, and he had everything on, and he said, you're going to be just fine, niece. I'm here. Next thing I know, I wake up in a hospital bed, and they told me they had to place a stent in my heart, that I now have to take all these medications, and that I have to take better care of myself. That was about 7 or 8 or so years ago. And to this day, I see a cardiologist every year. I take high blood pressure medication, I take cholesterol medication, and I have to take an aspirin every day. Now, I say that to say I was grinding for a long time. I was in relationships prior to my marriage that weren't healthy. And I was working nonstop. I was getting more degrees. And you ask, like, how many more degrees can you get? I have about 5 of them. And that's not about me trying to brag. It's about feeling that pressure to be the best. And no matter how many degrees you have, the world still will not see you as the best. You have to see yourself as that. And you have to ask yourself, in trying to reach these enormous goals, which you can, what are you willing to sacrifice? For me, I think it was some sacrificing of quality time with my children. I think it was the sacrifice of really being in healthy relationships at the beginning, but God saw fit to bring the very best in my life. But I will say to you, it came at a cost to my health. Trying to do it all, not sleeping at night, getting the appropriate amount of sleep and rest. I have to admit, I'm even guilty of that sometimes now. And I have to check myself like, hey, I know what it's like to have that chest pain, to not sleep well, to wake up in pain. And I don't want to ever experience that again. So, Black woman, ask yourself, are you willing to compromise your health for it? To open up all these businesses, to open up and be the entrepreneur you want to be? I'm all for it. I'm your biggest cheerleader. I know you can do it. But when is enough enough? What are you willing to sacrifice for it? So there are ways in which we do cope with these things. For us, sometimes we don't seek the mental health treatment. For us, sometimes we won't slow down. And we need to, we have to. In order to even appreciate ourselves, we have to slow down. For us, we internalize a lot. We put a lot on our back. And even when we want to cry, we don't. And sometimes when we do, it's by ourselves. Because at that point, we feel defeated and deflated. All by ourselves. It's like we're alone. When there are probably millions of us out there feeling the same way and not even supporting each other in fear that maybe she'll be more successful than me, instead of genuinely being happy for one another. I get it. Maybe society has created that competition that's not healthy. We can only take so many Black women at the company. We can only have so many Black women in a department. Why? Why do we have to be limited? So with that, and we know why, come on. But with that, then we become our own worst enemy sometimes. And I know this is not a favorable topic, but sometimes we make each other cry. And we hate to admit that, but it's true. You know, one of the things that I think is really important is being able to understand how to deal with all this stuff. There's some unhealthy ways. Some of us, there's some unhealthy ways. Some of us might start drinking more. Some of us may start smoking excessively. Some of us may get into really toxic relationships because we're looking for support in all the wrong places. We're looking for comfort in all the wrong places. Sometimes we stay in relationships that are not healthy way too long because we're chasing a dream, and at least we can have that person comfort us sometimes if they're not too busy tearing us down. Other times, we find ourselves just not healthy, being traumatized over and over and over again. Sometimes we're penalized at work, maybe for being too smart, being too black, being too ethnic. And we become emotionally lonely. Let's talk more about this after this commercial break, and we're going to deal with that loneliness and talk about healthy ways to survive. Welcome back to Say Something Black Girl with Dr. J. Before that commercial break, we were talking about loneliness. And loneliness amongst Black women can be so painful. It's one of those feelings for Black women that is undescribable, because you're lonely, but you're surrounded by everyone. And you feel like nobody understands how you feel, even other Black women. And even if they do understand, you're too afraid to talk about it with them in fear of being judged, or in fear of being perceived as the weak one, or the one that doesn't have it all together. When in essence, we all might be feeling that way at times. Being able to understand that we are stronger together, if we could only be honest and transparent about how we really feel, no judgment, just support. Lifting each other up and not tearing each other down. Not allowing our silence of making you think I have it all together is where I need to be when I'm trying to help another sister. I think it's important to know, Black woman, that you are not alone. That there are many, many Black women who are standing in your very shoes. If we only could be a support to one another so that we don't break down each other or just break down in general, but we become support systems for each other. Seeing another Black woman who might be a single parent, taking care of her kids, going to school, working full time, trying to make ends meet, and offering her, hey, bring the kids over here. Let me watch them while you study. Let me take the kids out to dinner while you spend some time to yourself. Being able to support each other is critical. stronger together. You're not alone. So now, some of the things we need to think about is having healthy and effective coping skills. 1, knowing when enough is enough. Not overextending yourself or putting too much on your plate. Learning the effectiveness of the word no. Knowing your worth and putting yourself in positions to do jobs that are more in alignment with your schedule and your flexibility to be there for your children. Needing that flexibility to be there for your children, and yet being in a financial situation where you're not struggling check to check. I understand the economy is growing and your paycheck might not be. That's why you have to be in a place or a position that you can afford. You know, for those times when you might need extra money for things, emergencies, savings, etc. So putting yourself in a position, a better financial position where you can help yourself and not being afraid to ask others for help. Because believe me, Black woman, if you're crying, there's another Black woman that's also crying. Putting yourself more in a healthy position so that you can be there for those who need you, but more importantly, being there for yourself, showing up for yourself, having that love for yourself, having that loyalty for yourself, pouring in to yourself so that you can have the emotional bandwidth to deal with the complexities of life. Being there for yourself. It's more than just self-care. You can hear that all day long. Self-care is important. Absolutely right. I'm an advocate of self-care. You know, doing things for yourself, getting your hair done, getting your nails done, doing your exercise, eating well, having good social connections. I teach this in lifestyle medicine. Having that spiritual connection. It's a lot of things, reality testing. But it's also important to do the deep dive. And what I mean by that is getting the professional help for mental health that's needed. Being able to see how you're making decisions, how you're planning and strategizing your life. What's important to you, prioritizing those things. The importance of mental, physical, and spiritual, how you're incorporating that. The way in which you're formulating or developing relationships. Not just with a romantic partner, but relationships in general. Boundaries, establishing healthy boundaries in all relationships, including family. Taking care of yourself in a sense of getting the appropriate amount of rest. Making sure you're eating good meals or making better choices. Establishing healthy friendships. I know I'm reiterating some points because they're worth reiterating. Not being afraid to cry, Black woman. I know ever since we was little, you know, we've been told, I'll give you something to cry about. Or, why are you crying? Stop acting like a crybaby. And the irony of it is, stop crying like a girl. Well, I am a girl. And it's okay to cry, whether you a girl or a boy. I have it. If I'm being honest, it's hard for me to cry even to this day, even when I know I need to. It's okay to cry. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you might be experiencing some pain that you need to release, and to know that it's okay and you're not weak, you're human. Black women, we are great. We're smart. We're intelligent. We're business owners. We're entrepreneurs. We're top CEOs. We're directors. We're nurses. We're doctors. We're lawyers. We're engineers. We're financial advisors. We're everything in this world. And one day we'll be president. But we're also human. We're also human. And the last time I checked, humans are allowed to cry. There is time to cry. And I'm going to tell you, Black woman, a part of your superpower is crying. It's okay to cry in front of others. It's okay to cry. I know society for a long time have seen us as not even being human. We're supposed to be workhorses. We're not supposed to have feelings. We've allowed people, and people have been allowed, to talk to us any kind of way, and we're supposed to just swallow it. I'm telling you now, be mindful of the company you keep in all areas. Be mindful of what you're spending your time on. Some things, Black woman, you can get out of your life. Be mindful of the things that you are eating, of your time, of your sleep. What are you actually giving your energy to? We don't have to cry because we don't think we're good enough. We cry because we're not respected as women. And it's time society knows that we're human, that we cry, that we love, that we laugh, that we live. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope that you've learned something today that inspires you to look at what you're doing and do it better, but not to an extent where it takes your life. Thank you for joining me here on this episode of Say Something Black Girl with Dr. J. I'll see you in the next episode, Black woman. You got this.